So they let him go. You go and work and give me a cut of your salary, 10%. Genuine slavery.
Yeah.
Now, someone asked Bin Baz, saying that this is happening. Obviously, the one who's asking is also a bit mischievous. He wants to embarrass these princes and find some way to attack them. But say this is improper, which is right. But look at the simple mind. I think it's simple mind. It's not mischievousness. Partly also, workers should be only applied for visas to bring them in for real work. And if they come, they should work for their own account, for their own families, not for the one who gave them visa. Or they work for him and he gives them for their full salary. Take part of the salary is a big haram, which is correct. This is. And that otherwise, now he continue, shows again the laxness and the imprecision. He continues to say, but bring them this way and let them lose in the market and possibly not finding a job and possibly committing crimes to survive, etc., will cause fasad. Is fasadun kabir. It's corruption on earth. Now the word corruption on earth immediately invokes in everyone's mind the ayah about cutting heads and legs and crucifixion. That's what the punishment. So do you mean corruption is this meaning or we just saying a metaphorical meaning? This should not answer of a faqih with this question. He should have answered the following way. If I were in his place, I would say I will not answer because this will lead to a confrontation. If I answer, I will answer the following way. First of all, this is the Arab Peninsula which is dedicated to Islam. And he has so many fatwas condemning importing let's use the word importing workers who are non-Muslims. And generally, who are important non-Muslims, and especially mostly the workers are coming for relatively low-level activities, which you can find many Muslims in India, in Pakistan, and so on, poor Muslims who will be happy to have this salary and support their families. So the question would be why, first of all, there should not be non-Muslims under those, number one, reminding of his previous fatwas, which has some good reasons, especially in the Arab Peninsula.
To bring kuffar. To bring kuffar.
To bring kuffar. That's number one. Secondly, if they are Muslims, he should have discussed the question, is it really needed for a Muslim to come in a Muslim country? Is there a visa needed? Thirdly, is this system of sponsorship making any sense? Is it Islamic? Which makes you like the slave of the guy. The moment you arrive, they take their passport and lock it away. This is even against international law. They don't do that to the American, by the way. They don't dare do it to the Americans. And the American embassy will immediately step in and squeeze your neck. And even Saudi passport, they tell you go to another country, don't give your passport to anybody else. So how come the other people coming to you, you take their passports? And fourthly, this is a very important question. Is it really required for a Muslim to enter another Muslim country with a visa? This will open obviously a host of issues, dangerous issues. And then, if someone does like that, what should be the punishment? That the visa should be cancelled, these people should be freed from this man, and this man should be tried and maybe brought to front of court of law. And the judge will find out what is the proper, that should be at least a structured fatwa. Part of it is because of simple-mindedness, not awareness of what's going in the world, and part of it is because it touches the government.
So is it safe to now say that
Mudkhalis
or those who follow Bin Baz, are they making taqleed or they're making their ijtihad as an individual to go to Ahl al-Dhikr?
I would say, I don't want to be unfair to them, but I think they have appointed their scholars and scribes, gods beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and lords. It's not no more taqleed ijtihad, it's getting out of the border. It's getting out of the border of taqleed into the level of appointing scholars, gods beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because they're rejecting any other scholar completely, they will not go to any other one. And if you go to another one, they will be classified as deviant, not as mistaken. Mistaken maybe is acceptable, but as deviant. And they insist in certain technicalities they claim to be ijaza and things like that. And their arguments are faulty, and they are not willing to step back from their arguments. So this is not the characteristics of taqleed. Because even if you go to a Pakistani muqallid, and you tell him, listen, Imam Shafi is also a great Imam, he said this and this, you may enlighten him and make him become Shafi. Many of the Hanafi who came, for example, in East Africa, in Kenya, and interacted with many Arabs there who are coming from Yemen and Hadramaut, which is mostly Shafi, and they became Shafi. It was not a major problem for them. And they were originally Hanafi, the same generation. The next generation following their fathers, we know that. But the earlier generation, they did not find any major problem. So these people are more common, simple-minded Indian. At that time there was no Pakistan. Indian Muslims are much more open-minded and open-hearted than these people who are from. Because they do think, Muhammad Shafi is also a great Imam. What's the problem? But these people tell you, no, this one is deviant. So it's a danger. It's a labeling of deviance.
So where did the ijaza came to? Who brought the ijaza? That you should have ijaza?
They must have taken it from the hadith, issue of ijaza to hadith, but that was to verify and to kind of, but that, I think they've abused the whole hadith from student to sheikh in the reading.
This ijaza is originated for the hadith that أجزت لك أن تروي عني, I permit you to narrate this book from me if the sheikh gives you his hadith and he trusts that you are capable of reading his handwriting correctly and narrating correctly, then they give you ijaza.
But that's just to do with just the narration.
So you are legitimately narrating, say I narrated from my sheikh, but the scholars even until later they say ijazatan. It's not that I heard from him, but he gave me a copy and it made me ijaza for that. And this is regarded as the lowest level of. The other one is like a certificate. You have been in my halaqah, I have tested you. I think I have given you a certificate that you are capable of, for example, of teaching Bukhari, or I am capable of teaching tafsir according to Tabari, or maybe various tafsir and so on. This is like a graduation. No. It is just a statement from a scholar that you have shown certain level of maturity, like issuing a master or a PhD, that you have shown a certain level of. But it's not by no way. For example, to give you an example, most universities in the world now, and most places in the world insist that you have a certain degree in a formalized way. Like, for example, to be a teacher in any university in most places in the world, you have to have a PhD, for example. This is not required in England. Even until now, you will find professors who have never had a PhD. They developed through publication and scholarly, and it's proven themselves by scholarly, because they are not that formal. There are other proofs. It doesn't need to be formally as a PhD. In those countries, all what is done is that instead of 3-4 papers scattered here and there, you put them together in one treatise and submit it as a thesis. That's it. It's the same thing. But here it's done in a structured way, in a formalized way. Here it's done in a more old classical scholarly way. And so there's nobody's claiming that the university professors in England are less qualified than the one in Germany or America, in the average. So you see what I mean?
I have regular conversations with some others from the Salafi background, the Wahhabi background, and they pose some questions and I give them answers. Now, a lot of the time I'll give them my take on things. I'll provide them with the evidence, which is explicit. Now, their answer to that is, they're sincere guys, they pray, they do everything, alhamdulillah, they're good brothers. But the problem is if I give them any hadith, Quranic ayah, they'll say, to be honest with you, I've chosen this person because I trust him. Madkhali, for example, I trust him, and because let's say you accept Tawheed al-Hakimiyya, if you accept that category, I don't want to get confused, so I'm only going to follow him. Even if I'm giving these guys clear-cut rulings, they still reject it. Now, that person who's sincerely trying to follow this person because he's he believes that Islam has to be pure and it can't be contaminated with views of the
this appointing scholars and monks lords beside Allah. That's exactly what the Christian have been done. Ask the Christian, they think that's exactly this is the trustworthy. He's appointed by the church after scrutiny, and the church has its own isnad. This is the most important. Even the aqidah is less important than the isnad for the church. Give you an example. When this is an old issue between the Christian. Is Jesus having two natures or one nature? And two wills and one will. So the Catholic Church says it has two natures, a human nature and divine nature, and the human will and divine will, to solve some problems in the scriptures. The Egyptian Church said, no, it has only one nature, which is something in between human and God. Nobody knows what's it, like mixing water with wine, and you mix, and one will. Because otherwise the sacrifice on the cross does not make any sense. Because if he has two natures, then the one beaten and getting the heck, kicked the butt and so on, spat in the face is the human. The divine did not touch. So there's no divine sacrifice there. What's the fuss? Anyway, a guy in Lebanon around, I think after the advent of Islam of 1 century or something, I don't remember the time, roughly, but after the advent of Islam, if I'm not mistaken, or around that time, came with a compromise. I think his compromise is that Jesus has one nature, but two words. The Maronite. The hell was lost. The Egyptians, Orthodox Egyptian Church declared kufr on him, heretic, and Rome declared kufr on him, so he was out marginalized. Then later, in the recent centuries, after maybe 5, 6, 7 centuries or longer, the Maronite decided to go back to the Catholic Church. And so we gave up on this. We're back to the two nature and two wills. They said perfectly fine, but you have a problem with your church because you establish a church which does not have a chain of narration going to one of the apostles. We will appoint now the bishops, so you cannot appoint by yourself. You don't have isnad. So this is more important. Is aqidah okay? You correct the aqidah, but your isnad is faulty. Because it has to be appointed while we're going all the way. A bishop has to ordain you, and this one ordained by previous one. And if you go, the chain is continuous until one of the early apostles in the dark 1st century, early 2nd century of Christianity, which is there's a question mark. And Rome claims it's Peter who established the church in Rome. So, but if you ask them, the church is the reference. But the Cardinal Convent, the Congresses decide, that's it. And you can argue as much as you like. They have to correct themselves later. They are lords beside Allah.
So,
this is an extremely negative and dangerous attitude.
So I can go to, for example, it doesn't mean, just for the sake of maybe the audience, you don't go to somebody that you trust and that's it. You can go to other people as well.
Yeah, you must.
As long as what satisfies you.
You must, yeah.
But how do you check people's taqwa? That's no one.
No, just by shaking them like you shake the one who's asking for the hand of your daughter or sister. Is he a suitable husband or not? That's all. You're not checking taqwa. Checking that it appears that he's complying with Islam. He's not known to be committing public sins. That's all.
If you're in a position to go to someone, would you have ever gone to Sheikh Tantawi?
No, never. That's very clear because his fatwas are clearly. If someone gives a fatwa that the French government has the right to force Muslims not to wear hijab, around that every state can enact any laws. No, state can't enact any laws. Even if they think they have the right, they don't have the right. God's right is predominant. You have to respect that. If you don't respect it, you are behaving hostile. You may do it by force. You may enforce it by tanks, but you don't have the right. This is a major blunder. This is almost bordering on kufr. If he has analyzed it properly, he would have concluded it's not. Sorry, I can't accept it. I must object to that. I have no power to stop you from that, but you are wrong in doing that. And you will be, beside being a kafir, you will be punished for that in Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's all you will say. No, nothing will change in reality. But the vision of the reality, the description of the reality is different. It can't be.
Sure. Sure, I want to ask, in reality, as a common man, how often should we be going to a scholar for advice? I mean, in reality, how many of the issues can we get from the Quran?
I don't know. It depends upon people. This my feeling is that it's people are doing their salah, their zakah, and so on. Zakah is a bit complex. So when someone gets money, it's zakah. He has to go really to check with scholarly information, because even that time the Sahaba, most Sahaba did not know what zakah. When he said someone collected zakah, he gave them instruction how much to take and so on. But this is really a job of the state, but there's no state. So in that case, you have to do your accounting. It became really a messy job. That's an area where there's so, but most people are not liable for zakah anyway. Most Muslims are poor anyway, and the rich one are not giving zakah anyway. So, except very few. So the problem does not arise. And other issues, there may be marital conflict. You need maybe some advice, things like that. From Sharia point of view, what are the limitations of Sharia? But most it will be a matter of really how to integrate and solve things socially, not going there to the Sharia borders. Well, Sharia borders will be just extreme, but it may get to extremes and things like that.
So what I'm getting from this whole thing is that our decline happened because we started, historically, it took time to kind of snowball. Our decline started because of our over-reliance and our excessive taqleed. And we stopped reading, because Muslims don't really know.
Yeah.
They don't want to pick up a book and read, essentially, and use their brain, the grey matter, you know. So,
and this is even to use the brains. The Quran has come specifically with ayahs and phrases which are mutashabih, which are rejecting with has point of view. The only mutashabih is alif lam mim sad, and alif mim the singular letters, because he took an extreme point of view, which is really does not stand scripturally.
What did he say?
So the mutashabih is only alif lam mim, alif lam mim sad, ayn. No, this is not a respectable point of view. The all respectable hasn't. This is one scholarly blunder going to extreme. Because he said, "Oh, Quran is very clear everywhere." This is not, because some ayahs you will not understand. They take another ayah and put them together. That's mutashabih because it admits various meanings. That's the meaning of mutashabih. So, and the Quran is clear that he revealed to the Quran their ayahs which are muhkam, which are the reference, and mutashabih. Why mutashabih is revealed? So that the grey matter works. So you become a scholar, so you start putting things together, analyzing.
Every individual.
Yeah.
This is obligation for every individual.
Not for every individual, as needed.
I need to try to the best ability to reflect, to ponder.
Yeah.
But there's this other disease that's happening in Ummah, especially, I would say, South Asian people. That, let's say, they go to a masjid, to a sheikh, they say, for example, selling alcohol or selling pork or anything. Of course, the sheikh will straight away say no to him. But then there are some other private members of the community who are elders and they pretend to be sheikh. When they go to ask the same question, they say, yeah, it's acceptable because you have to provide rest for your family. So normally, as a human being, always say, if I'm doing something negative and I turn to this individual, he is more lenient, although he may be wrong. So that's why people turn to those people instead of going to the right.
That shows these people are just playing games. They should not have asked in the first place. If that's what they want.
Which is the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. This is the lack of piety. So we're not addressing that to someone. If someone is having this issue, then we have to discuss with him. We should remind him that he may live 100 years, but he will end into turning into dust and ashes. And then there's Yawm al-Qiyamah. And then say, if you don't believe in Yawm al-Qiyamah, then we have another issue to discuss first. If you believe in Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will be accounting for that. And the rizq is coming this way or this way. It comes through halal and haram. And you don't need rizq coming from haram. In that case, that's the job of Khutbah al-Jum'ah. Unfortunately, the Khutbah al-Jum'ah, the Madhab al-Hanafi adopted, it has to be in Arabic. That's the common point of view. And then you have the Khutbah, which is so short. So it's very good, but very, very short. And the dars before that, not always. Sometimes there's a dars related to the topic of Khutbah al-Jum'ah. And very often the dars neglects, like, for example, getting an issue for example, the accountability in Yawm al-Qiyamah, and that it is rizq, for example. You are not permitted to sell khamr because it's your rizq. To stop it. For example, if the hadith mentioned like about khamr, let me give you an example. If the hadith, for example, when the ayat started coming indicating that khamr will be brought, the Prophet recognized that. Say, I see that Allah is doing the first step toward prohibiting khamr. If you have khamr, sell it quickly before the prohibition comes. So this gives you is also another point that a list of prohibition comes, it's not prohibited. Although the Messenger of Allah felt it is coming. So, إِنِّي أَرَى اللَّهَ يُعَرَّض بِالْخَمْرِ is indicating something for khamr. And Abu Talha, the stepfather of Anas ibn Malik, had some money invested in Khamr for some orphans. He did not have the advice, or he did not thought it will come. And then when the prohibition came, he came rushing to the Prophet and said, I have the orphan money invested in Khamr. What to do? He said, throw it out of the sea. Nothing can be done. It's finished. Over. Even if it's money of orphans, you should have done it before, not now. That's it.
So Anas bin Malik
is an orphan money, but still, it doesn't give an excuse. One trader came and from a trip to Sham, from a business trip, and said to the Prophet, said, I brought you a first class drink. The Prophet looked at him, smiled, and said, didn't you know that Allah has prohibited this? By Allah, I don't know, otherwise I don't have bought it. Then he whispered something to his assistant. He's a trader, big businessman. And then the Prophet said, what did you tell him? So I told him to take it and sell it at the Jewish market, which are an evidence that the Jews have their own market and Khamr was sold in their market. To clarify, there's something in the mind of people who are obsessed, Salafi and otherwise.
I've heard the argument before that you mentioned, but what about the issue of them selling?
Who?
Did that revelation come later on?
Oh, no, let me finish. No, escape all in one go for the Khamr. Then he said, the one who prohibited Khamr prohibited selling also. Say, I saw the man, the narrative says, I saw the man, he went to the sacks, they were in sacks, opened them and saw the first class Khamr rolling on the ground. He himself did that. He's recognized, khalas, it's done, finished, it has to be destroyed.
So the Prophet ﷺ never had Khamr on that moment, of course, or before that, or we don't know.
I don't know, it's irrelevant. This is not a relevant question. That's again the obsession that before the prohibition, somehow it has a stain saying haram, beware it will be. It's not true. That's it. For Islam, I don't think the Prophet drank, Uthman never drank, neither in Jahiliyyah and Islam. Umar was a big drinker. Hamza was a super drinker.
Abu Bakr never drank.
I don't know if Abu Bakr did, but I know Hamza and Umar were first class. They were pub specialists.
And Anas bin Malik used to have a bar.
Oh yeah, he was also he has in his house. Abu Talha was drinking with others, and he was throwing, giving them, and they were enjoying themselves. And the prohibition came while they were drinking. And Abu Talha told him, go with the hammer and smash all these big earthen containers, like porcelain jars, clay jars. Just smash all of them. So it was running in the streets of Medina. They had so much hammer that the streets were running like as if there's a rain and the flooding. That's what went, gone past, finished, forgotten in one go.
Should we then, so madhabs, the future, should they be phased out?
They should be actually. They should be actually, but this is easier said than done. I think with a good general education, and you will have also the problem that in the schools you have to have some adoption also to teach the children. You cannot for smaller children just give them 2 or 3 points of view. This will be for someone underage. Quite so maybe there will be if an Islamic State is established, maybe there will be scholarly conventions which will sit and try to get really at the bottom of many issues and put them together. And hopefully they will be from various madhab and sufficiently well educated, and would need to be established state is a state which respects Islamic mind and Islamic ijtihad and does not interfere in these things. So more streamlined point of view. And then this will be that what it told the children in school, and then what they told later on you may become capable yourself to develop that further or even have another point of view. But stick to that for the time being.
But you mentioned the issue of Islamic State, but I mean, when you look at, for example, like Hizb Tahrir is, they want to establish Khilafah, for example. But they want to establish Khilafah, they have their usul of the 4, Quran, Sunnah, Sahaba, Qiyas. Now, the Sahaba, they were so successful and they established it within 13 years because they drank from the well of Quran and Sunnah only. That's it. Now, we're getting the revelation from sources which are not revelation as well. So we're not doing enough to get that state because we're going through the wrong means. So,
but that should be clean.
It should be clean. But I mean,
some scholarly work is being done.
How are we going to revive and get the Khilafah and get the Islamic State before we iron out these issues of madhabs and qiyas and all.
I don't think this will be a handicap. This won't be. This is possible but you have to have, even in the activity itself, you have to have adoptions. That's very clear. And
adoptions by the Khalif, so that's
no. In the activities to get to the state, you have to have an adoption about methodology, about ways and means.
That's fine, but we're talking about adoption in terms of madhab.
The Khalif, why should he adopt in?
No, but I'm talking about, like you say, before we get to the state, for example, the methodologies and stuff. I understand.
Yeah, this to be adopted by the activists themselves.
Yes, activists is one thing. That's fine, but that's on a styles and means, and maybe adopt a method in terms of how the Prophet may have done.
Well, it's not. For example, you will find many jihad who say the only way is fighting is jihad, which is a mistake. You will find Hizb the only way is just political mass education and political interaction, no fighting, which is again a mistake in another extreme. And the reality has shown that it's marginalized the Hizb Tahrir and made him really an outsider. And they missed the opportunities to participate in the jihad in Afghanistan and also in Palestine, where the Hizb itself advocating jihad and military activities all the time, but say that we don't do it as a party. The individuals can do it. This is not done this way. It's easier said theoretically, but practically it can't.
Is it because of fear of being banned?
No. They were banned anyway. That has nothing to do with it. If it would fearing to be banned, he would not say all regimes in the Muslim countries are kufr regimes. He's the first really party to say that clearly. And his sister was saying that. Yeah. Which is the correct classification. That means you will end in prison right away, on day one. But this cannot be compromised because it's a fundamental point to stress. Because if one regime is not a kufr regime, then it is a legitimate regime, then you should go and give bay'ah and start correcting there. But it's not the case, and they are right in that. So I mean, no, it's not, no fear of this. But, even the adoptions of groups and that has to be, they did some good adoption, but it has not to be polished and developed further. Unfortunately, that got stagnant. Again, the next generation of the Hizb became muqallid of Sheikh Taqi. And the leadership decided they will not go ahead with any further development and so on.
But that's the problem, isn't it? It's based on personalities.
Yeah.
Everything.
But this is how the world works normally. There's nothing can be done about it except in the hope that some people awaken and come at the critical input, and then some people may adopt that and develop further, and some others may become stubborn, like the Hizb got stuck there. Instead of, for example, discussing the jihadi methodology, its limitation, and doing some solid fiqh studies, instead of that, they continue to take analysis. Is Al-Qaeda supported by CIA or CIA not is a part of the CIA or not? Even if it's a part of the CIA, they're putting some scholarly point on the table. It has to be studied.
Yeah.
They are not coming in a vacuum. They're not bring you the Chinese Red Book and saying adopt that. They're saying this from Quran Sunnah. And jihad is obligatory until Qiyamah. And the fight will continue until the Dajjal is eliminated and Gog and Magog finished. So what's your answer for that? So what's the limitation? You claim jihad is only under an imam, all scholars of Islam will refuse. If the country is invaded and the imam is killed, everyone is obliged to fight against the invaders. So there's no need for an imam. Is that situation applicable in Iraq now, or it's not applicable? Is it applicable in Afghanistan now, or not applicable? It has to be analyzed. But the fiqh of that has to be developed before that.
Okay, but
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't avoid that these guys have been initiated or misguided by the CIA or not is irrelevant. It is relevant in some aspect, but you have to develop the theory first and then analyze with that. Tell people you have been directed in that direction. It is the American scheme to get you there, and they just do the battle with your own blood and flesh. That
they spend more money on battle of hearts and minds than buying the shield on military. So that
has to be scrutinized both in political analysis, but before that the Sharia analysis has to be done.
Sheikh, I've just got a question. So you're talking about Sheikh Taqi when he formed his Tahrir, and then he passed away and then it got stuck. Like the same with Abu Hanifa when he passed away and then it got stuck.
So no, because Hanifa, the Madhab continued.
Yeah, but
because it's a school of thought. It's a scholarly development.
He never said himself that he's a school of thought. He just said, this is what
no problem. But that's what
people say that.
No, but the problem with Hizb Tahrir is a political party which has an objective to establish a state, etc. So you cannot afford to get stuck. That's a point of view. development of a fiqh point of view. Another generation may polish further, and they will develop a very big body, which is an intellectual development. That will become the madhab of the state and so on. Is there certain historic development which didn't even come in Abu Hanifa's mind whatsoever at all.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
So what process do they need to put in to make sure that continues? So Sheikh, if he's formed his book here, what processes does he need to put, or the group processes need to put in to continue that thought?
Review your point of view and adoption back and forth every day and every week and every month. Don't stop there. Review and criticize. And especially if another group or another point of view comes to them, they take it serious and read it. And these evidences, where is this a worthy thing? In the case of there's a hadith being involved, Isnad has to be checked thoroughly and cleanly. And I think also you should recognize that if you get stuck, for example, historically, like by activities, there must be something faulty. The fault could be in the Ummah. There have been prophets which have been sent to a nation without any success. It cannot be the fault of the prophet because he's supported by the revelation. It must be that Ummah is hopeless. It can be, but you cannot conclude that until you have really the evidence for it, a clear evidence. There's no reason to believe that there's a clear evidence for that whatsoever. But my conviction, I would say, we don't need to be very pessimistic. Why we don't need to be pessimistic? Yes, the beginning of the Ummah was very high. Then we have a really
dynasty.
We have dynasties, and even in the scholarly domain we have contamination of what I've said. Even some of the book of the Aqaid stress that the beginning of the Ummah was high, was good and pure. The middle is having qadar. Qadar is like contaminated with all kinds of sins and wrong ideas. And then the later part will be again pure.
It's in our generation.
Yeah. We don't know what's the later part, but definitely that when the time comes to the final battle and to the coming back of Isa and so on, the situation would have improved considerably and the Ummah would have improved. And I think there's various factors. One is that the Islamic scholarship, despite of it getting stuck after a few centuries, kick-started science and technology in the West.
Yeah.
And kick-started the new philosophies which abandoned and left behind most metaphysical studies about the divine and so on. That's all rejected and has proven to be useless and not producing any results. So when the Salafis get stuck with Asma and Sifat and Mash'ari and so on, they are stuck 1,000 years back. History has passed over them. The philosophy which is worth studying now is the philosophy of science, space-time, etc. And fundamental issues of logic. And if it comes to the divine, then only ilm al-kalam, as derived from Quran Sunnah, maybe in Hazm will give a start, but it has to be developed further. That's all. So all this energy which has been spent, the best minds were fighting with the issues of the divine attributes, that's all khalas foregone. And science and technology has come. Second, science and technology has demolished almost every ideology in the world except Islam. That's very clear that Christianity does not and Judaism does not stand in scrutiny because the Old Testament is essentially a mythical story. Most of it. I mean the issues of Genesis and these things. Not the history of Bani Israel. That's contaminated with various political mischiefs and so on, as any history. If you look also in Islamic history as written, but we don't claim it is divinely inspired. They claim it's divinely inspired. That's their problem. So that's smashed by scientific research in a very clear way. But also the older part of Genesis and the nature of the universe is all smashed by science, completely annihilated. While in Islam, the science is supporting it. All of it is supported by science in a clear way. So this is one. This gives Islam a boost. It's clearly Islam, despite having no state, is spreading enormously everywhere in the world. It's clear that many atheists, even scholars and so on, have recognized that they cannot, that they are getting to a dead end. All attempt of developing an atheist philosophy have failed because it's not supported scientifically nor rationally. So that's retreated. It's relying only on people who are essentially agnostic or do not want to bother their heads and will just enjoy life and run away from thinking about akhirah or any problem like that. But run away will not solve their problem. It solves some people's problem, but the rest will have the same yearning and the same problem inside their hearts. Then we have Islamic scholarship is being revived now. The first phase was really attempt of movements like the Wahhabi movements, the earliest in the modern, because the Wahhabi movement is in the modern time, roughly. So the Khilafah was in a deep decline. The Wahhabi movements came, shaking some foundation here and there. Some of it is negative, some of it is positive. Then the movements in Egypt in the 19th century, of Afghani and so on, more influenced and affected by the West. And then in the 20th century, then the counter movements started, who's going from the roots, Muslim Brotherhood, Hizb ut-Tahrir and so on. And if you see, the later it comes, the more original and pure the movements. The Ikhwan Muslimin is still contaminated with some westernized ideas and some maqasid and things like that, making that very big to get.
Qutbi line, you're talking about the
general. No, Qutbi, they say Qutbi is not from us, that's what they're saying now.
Oh, I see.
The Qutbi line, Jama'at Islam is similar but slightly better because Mawdud is more of intellectual, while Hassan al-Banna was more a spiritual man, a spiritual movement, rather than going in these esoteric questions. Actually, he started good, the 20 or so he started, if someone developed that further. Yeah. If someone developed that further into books and expanded, but they decided we stop there because if you develop too much of our knowledge, then your base will shrink, which is natural. So they wanted a bigger base, but if you have a bigger base, you lose intellectual sharpness. But a bigger base is good if you have a well-established society state like in England. Labour Party have a big base, but no sharp ideas. They want to make the ideas sharp like a Communist Party or a Trotskyist Party, then instead of having millions supporters, you have just 50,000 supporters. But what you want to do is to establish a new state, a new nation. For that you have to have a small core of hard activists who are completely devoted and ready to sacrifice. You are not in a normal situation, participating in election and doing reforms over decades and centuries. No, that's not the situation. So what they are doing is wrong. And they think they will be like the so-called Christian democratic parties in Europe. It can't be, because these are well-established entities. That's their society, the states there fits with the Christian point of view of Paul, essentially, that the state is there to...
No, but he did quite well. Hassan Banna did quite well. He got a huge number of people.
Yeah, but the huge number turned out to be ineffective when it came to the hard and hard. All that delivered quite a number of mujahideen in Palestine, Hamas is offshoot of that, etc. But it won't be able to get the Khilafah really revived. And Palestine is an odd situation. It's under occupation and so on, so you cannot take that somewhere else. Anywhere else, it is actually since decades now in decline. The numbers are shrinking, and the political activities are not working properly and backfire. Because in the usual political game of the secular state, especially the filthiest type, like in Muslim countries, not like the good and advanced type in European and American advanced areas in the first world. In the second and the third world, these are corrupt ruling elites, and the democratic game is just only a facade, not really a democratic game. So if you go in that game, they will grind you with their corruption. You can't. Unless you become corrupt like them, then you have lost your Islamic votes. Or you can't have corrupt, then you are contaminated and you will fall in the esteem of the people. It doesn't work. You have to have a clear distance from them. Still engage them, but clear distance. That's as easier said than done, but it has to be done. And in Jordan, for example, the King Hussein specifically, with the current king, they were able to play with the Muslim Brotherhood, marginalize them and finish them. They're essentially weakened now. They are not an irrelevant force. Time past they may have been, but he played the game back and forth, changing the election rules, squeezing here, squeezing there, appointing some of their ministers, firing them, putting a prime minister, kicking him the next day out. With few games like that, 10 years, you are finished. You are a joker in the eyes of the people. That's it. So that's what Hizb ut-Tahrir came is more sharper, more well developed, but it needs further development. Then the Jihad came, but they are narrow-minded, only Jihad. Jihad is good to expel an invading army, but you can't establish a state by military action. Military action, you can storm a mountain, but you cannot build a bridge. You need engineering, need certain knowledges. You can have hundreds, thousands of tanks standing on the riverside, they will not build a bridge. You need an engineer for that. It's different. The tanks will be able to defeat an empire, invading army and destroy it. But you won't be able to build a religion. Religion needs another category of thought, another category of action.
أهل حديث. أهل حديث.
Al-Hadith is like an academic group living in ivory tower. They will not be. They will not have any effect. It's just
the Pakistani.
Yeah. It says they are, especially in Pakistan and India. There was a joke about Al Hadith and Brailwi and I think Maulana. I think Imran said I was pondering about if we know if you are born in a Brailwi family, you become Brailwi. If you are born in Deobandi, you become But if you are converted to Islam by a Deobandi, you are converted to Deobandi. That's good. He's talking about India. If you are converted, let's assume someone studied by himself and come to Islam. What will be said? I analyzed India. I thought if a Hindu converts to Islam on his own without any guide, then he will become Brailwi because they have plenty of myths and khurafat. They're similar to Hindus. And if people of the book or scholars convert to Islam, then they will become Deobandi because they're scholarly, they're scrutinized. And if Sikh or hot-blooded convert to Islam, they will become Al-Hadith. Please don't be angry at Al-Hadith. You know, some people will be upset to hear that today, but it's a joke. Take it as a joke, but it gives some glimpse about a character. These are hot-blooded, narrow-minded. These are more scholarly. And the other one is full of khurafat and bid'ah and myths and living most of the day in a dream world of barakah and angels coming down and spirits going up and things like that. And singing the praise of the Prophet and so on, 100 times Durood Sharif, everything is on. And things like that. 100,000 tasbih will get you a boy child, 50,000 will get you a girl child. I'm just I'm not saying they do say that, but something like that. Living in a non-real world. Living in a non-real world, not in a reality. So this is. And if you look at the scholars, they are like an academic discipline. This is not a political party which changes. They cannot interact with that. You see, for example, the Jihad Islamic, although it has become like a political organization, but it was never able really, maybe partly because of necessity, to overcome to overbreak the gap with the ulama. One of the reasons is that they're here, because far away from the Arabic language, they insist on having Isnad. So, and having references and having ijazah. And the Jama'at Islami never bothered, for example, like Muslim Brotherhood, to direct some of their shabab to go to academic disciplines, get graduations, become scholarly capable, so they have their own generation of scholars. Hizb is even worse. Hizb, so no, we are not scholars who are going to become Imam Masjid and Faqih. He even prohibited the shabab from becoming this way. And the result is that they're out of touch with the reality, because the people need this type of people. You cannot say we are a political party, we are not becoming a school or becoming an Imam Masjid. You have to get these functions to lead the society. It's needed. You have to. There's no escape. This is a blunder. It has to be corrected. So
it's important for a scholar to be schooled in the world.
Yeah, because the real world expect that from you. The same for Hizb al-Tahrir, for example. They should have directed the shabab, a portion of them. You have to.
If economists
you are qualified, you go and study Usul al-Fiqh and Fiqh Sharia and get a certificate. And if you have the energy and we can even fund you, you go for Masters and PhD until we have our own 20, 30, 50, 60 PhD. From them, 3, 4 will be distinguished scholars, and then we overshadow the other scholars with ijazah, with references.
Because a lot of people will say, if a scholar...
Otherwise the scholarly community is isolated and the activist community is another way together. That's not how it works, because it has to integrate. Yeah. If they are scholars are narrow and they're living in the ivory tower, so we are not involved in that, then you penetrate in their domain and take over the leadership there.
Well, that's the problem.
With your own style, with your own shabab. So you have to do that. It's not enough that you, for example, look at the Muslim Brotherhood. If you look, we have barely any scholars except Qaradawi and Kabul, which is technical sense. scholarly, well-grown. Few. That's not enough. Because the few is not enough. You have to have a complete body.
Not for the size of the organisation, is it?
Yeah, it's proportional. If you have millions of organization, you should have thousands of people who have PhDs in Islamic studies. You must have. And they will build you, they will further develop your ijtihadat and develop further. The same with Hizb. It should have, they have maybe a Khalidi or 1 or 2, but this is not enough. The Hizb size is not small. It is underground now and has shrunk down in Jordan, but still they have something like it, especially in Jordan. But now maybe 10-15% of popular support. This is not a small fraction to be neglected. That means you have to have, if for example in Palestine and Jordan we have, like for example, several thousand imams of masjid and judges, Sharia judges and sheikhs, and all the people ask for fatwas. So then you should have your 100 out of them. You should have your percentage. You should have your over proportional actually. If you are 15%, 10-15% of the population, and you have 1,000 scholars and judges and imam, you should have 150 at least. But you should be more. You should be having 300. You should be pushing the others out, because you have an agenda to change the whole nation, and not only just being an imam only, or being a Sharia judge in a Sharia court, or giving fatwa, or giving an academic teaching. You have another agenda to change the situation of the nation and establish a state. That's not done. Isn't even in the case of Hizb, it's the opposite. It's there, rejected almost. No, we are not imams of masjid. No, we are not.
We just adopt the books, the 13 books which are written.
No, we are activists. We do the activities. We call for khilafah only. This is a grievous mistake.
Ridiculous. The Sahaba were activists, but they also follow the Wahy. And
also they have the scholarly cycles. Quite a number of them become scholars. When we have, for example, from the Sahaba who were the genuine Sahaba, not the one who saw the Prophet only. That's 100,000 plus who saw him in Hijjatullah, but the one who really living in Medina with him, the one who attended Badr and Al-Hudaybiyah, and also even Tabuk, you wouldn't say, because many of them just saw him.
So what's the definition of Sahaba?
Sahabi should be a companion. So the Sahaba themselves defined, Anas ibn Malik said, someone asked him, is there any Sahabi left beside you when he was in high age? He said, no, except few Bedouins who saw the Prophet. But for companions, I am the last one. You see, so here you can find the one who really was given company. But this is the word of companion, the one who was with him.
So, but in Arabic, so what is
Arabic is companion. That companion. What's companion?
What's Sahaba?
What's companion? What's
the Sahaba is also the person who just saw him in Hujjatul Wada from.
That's the technical definition of the people of Hadith, but this is not really the Arabic language Sahaba. Not really what the Prophet would say.
Ashab is like companion.
Companion. That's the word in Arabic also.
So when we say that Sahaba were also radiallahu anhu, does it include these Sahaba or generally?
You can include whatever you want, but the question is that they wanted to define for the hadith narration something, and for this. But the definition is ill-defined because it does not make any sense. It's very difficult to ascertain who is really deserving that.
Because even the Muslimin who came in the Battle of Badr, from the side of Quraysh, the few young boys who were Muslim, but they were with the army because they came to and they were killed in the battle by mistake. They could be considered as Sahabis because they saw the Prophet and they died in the state of Islam, but because they were on the wrong side of the road.
They were not publicly Muslims. So they define for the hadith purposes, the Sahabi is the one who saw the Prophet while being a Muslim and died on Islam. Sometimes they died on Iman, but this cannot be verified. We don't know if he's Munafiq or so. Died publicly in Islam. And this will include also Munafiqeen. But Munafiqeen are not known. So it's an obscure. The definition is just for the narration that someone may have received something. Does not mean he's really a companion with the virtues of being a companion. And all the companions also not one rank. There are various ranks. Yeah? So, but independent of that, let us say the genuine ones were in Medina, who saw him, who sat in sometimes in Halaqah, saw him in the masjid, and so on. There are a few thousands. From them, we have at least fatwas and narrations and so on, plenty, which can be regarded as for that time span as scholarly, 100 something. Yes, the one who has plenty of, we haven't classified them as a very nice section in his, it's maybe worth printing and distributing to the people, is that there are about 7 or 8 who has various volumes of fatwa and narrations. Like Ibn Abbas, like Aisha radiallahu anha, like Umar, like Abdullah ibn Umar, like Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, like Ibn Mas'ud. These are one with plenty of fatwa and narration, which fills volumes. Then there is an extra 20 something who have like what Ibn Hazm called juz or juz'in. Juz is like a small pamphlet, 1 or 2 pamphlets, not even one full volume, according to his description of his time, which is obviously a bit flexible. And then we have over 100 others who from them we have 1 fatwa or 2 fatwa and 3 fatwas. And these are regarded as scholar, because if you have a fatwa recorded or narrated, as he talks about things in his time in narration, then you are talking about really a scholar, a sahabi. The others who just saw the Prophet in the desert or in the Hajj, they will never even open their mouth with anything, except that I saw him and he said this word. That's just narration. But any fatwa, no. Any fatwa, nobody did. At the time, even they were pushing away from fatwa. So if you have 1 or 2 or 3 fatwas from them, that means you are dealing with a scholar, but it's not that intensive like Omar or like the ones who have a small 1 or 2 pamphlets. So we have 100 plus from an illiterate nations who were before Islam, nil, does not count anything except in memorizing and narrating poetry and fighting for water sources and for grazing land. You have now suddenly a scholarly community. Some of them are first class scholars. Even well done, like when you look at Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, he has camel full of the books of the previous nations. All the books of the Old Testament and New Testament, he was able to read, I think, in Syriac, and he has even books which are extant now, and he used to give it halaqah for that, studying them and analyzing them. So we are dealing with a major change from Bedouins, low-class people who the best what they can do will go to Syria and do some trade and sell in Abyssinia and make some money, into people who can change the world and to do enormous scholarly development. And from them, volumes have been narrated. So, and they are the activists and they are the fighters at the same time. Quran memorization alone was all the people of Sufa, their job was to read Quran at night and at day to go and firewood and so on for themselves and for sadaqah. That was their function. Devoted just to memorize the Quran and organizing it in pamphlets and so on.
But they were the great mujahideen as well?
Yeah, naturally. That's automatic. There's no discussion about that. That's automatic. That's even the one who do not read and write or have even do not know even 1 ayah or 2 ayahs or just barely read the Fatiha were mujahideen. That's a standard. That's the daily bread. And these tens of thousands, 100,000 who saw him in Hajjat al-Wada, most of them participated in demolishing the empires from that time. So they were all mujahid. Now we're talking about the scholarly aspect. So it is not so that it was just only mujahideen and only activists. No. Very qualified. And there were other scholars which died too early for them to leave anything like Muhammad ibn Jabal. Muhammad ibn Jabal died too early, so maybe not very much narrated from him. But
he spent most of his time away from Medina.
No.
He was in Yemen, he was with Abdullah.
No, in Yemen, the 9th year. That's all.
And he was in Syria with Abu Ubaidah.
Well,
that's after the Prophet.
That's after the Prophet. But before the Prophet, he may went to Syria just in a shopping or trading campaign and came back. But otherwise, the last year he was in Yemen. That's it. And before he was in Yemen, he was in Medina. There were few even who gave fatwa in the time of Rasul. So that people, if they needed fatwa, they went to those first. Because otherwise the Prophet would be overloaded. And there were few who were exercising judiciary in Medina in his lifetime. Despite the small size of Medina. Medina is very small. So how many people did it? 10,000? It's almost like a large village. A small town. But there were 50 at his time. And you find in the reference books like the title say, الذين يفتون على وقت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, those who gives fatwa at the time of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. So this is, it was really an upheaval, enormous scholarly development.
And there were times when Rasul used to refer, people used to ask him questions to other Sahabis as well to ask them.
Could be, I don't remember cases like that, but But already the people knew that this is available for fatwa in that area of that section of Medina. They go to him, and if something is not clear, he will go and ask him. So that's why he's shielded from the most trivial and clear things which are well established. So all of that in a very short time.
Sheikh, for further development, does there need to be another upheaval for scholarly learning too?
Sure. Well, it's coming, because obviously we are coming from a very low period, the universities and so on are producing deficient scholarship. For example, most universities in Saudi Arabia, the one I know about, they will not really tune you to be independent intellectual.
But they have the most money as well.
So and they will give you only one madhab essentially, Hanbali, and only one Wahhabi point of view. And this is just many of these things are just regurgitating. Yes, in hadith sciences and so on, and verifying manuscripts and so on, they're doing some steps. So all manuscripts are being printed and cleaned and verified. But really, intellectual development, because this is an area where intellectualism is regarded with suspicion, maybe even disrespect. The same applies for Azhar and so on. It's also regurgitating and the old-fashioned style of teaching.
So scholarly revival happen in non-institutionalized settings.
That's where I think
this is where it's seeming to actually.
That's the reason I say I'm blaming really Muslim Brotherhood and Hizb and Jama'at Islamic that they did not do this job.
No, but I'm just saying, for example, like brothers like these kind of sit-ins.
Oh yeah, that's it.
But it's not going to be the real.
No, but an organization like Muslim Brotherhood with billions of investment could have allocated scholarship and see who is bright. It's easy to recognize who is bright. See the school. Have some people evaluating who is real. We know in this halaqah that this guy is very sharp. Who knows? And then we recommended to the halaqah leader, we recommend to the leadership that there's a very sharp guy there. Why don't we adopt him and send him to study a bit in Al-Azhar, a bit maybe with all the classical mashayikh in Mauritania, and then a bit in Oxford. So he opens the world in all directions. Or we have maybe already someone who studied philosophy and physics and so on. He seems to be very sharp. Why don't we use this as a jumping bread to study Islamic topics, like for example, maybe just Islamic philosophy, or maybe Sharia with usul fiqh.
Basically,
I can't imagine that the millions of the Muslim Brotherhood there are not several thousand very sharp boys who should have been adopted. Instead of wasting money on conferences, which half of them are relatively useless, just people blabber there and repeat the same thing. For example,
absolutely.
Hizb is less capable because of their financial capability and the number is smaller, but still should be capable for a smaller number. But you feel there's a negligence of this area. We have the adoptions, there are until Yawm al-Qiyamah. It sounds like some Hanafi in time past they were discussing when Isa alayhi comes back, which madhab he will be applying. People wake up. This is an infallible prophet coming back. He will understand Quran and Sunnah. Will tell you this hadith is fabricated. Don't waste your time with it right away. And this is Sahih. I'm going to apply this way, so it should be applied. He will apply the Sharia. He has no Sharia, another Sharia. He's a Muslim, a follower of Muhammad at that time. But he will be doing that. He doesn't need Abu Hanifa, nor Muhammad Al Massari, nor Ahmad Muhammad. And they say definitely he will be following Abu Hanifa because it's the correct madhab. So narrow-minded and madhabi and stuck in their madhab. Well, some people like that. Even some people said in time past, whatever ayah or hadith contradict what we conclude from the madhab, this ayah or hadith must be abrogated or has another interpretation, which is not obvious yet.
But Isa will bring a change to religion as well.
No.
Which is the change of taking jizya from the...
No, this is not clear. I say yada al-jizya. Yada put meaning putting down, abolishing, and meaning enforcing. He will tell you what's the meaning of yada al-jizya, but he is not going to bring a change of religion because the Prophet said that he will do that. So already he told you what he's going to do. Yeah?
So it's not a change.
Yeah, and he said he will break the cross. We don't understand what the meaning of the break the cross. Break all crosses in the world, meaning he will not accept Christian in the Islamic domain, or he will break the major cross as a symbolic act. Look, this is cross, I'm going to break it in front of everyone.
Or maybe people will find the true cross, which was lost after the battle.
Maybe. This is, and say, and break it. We don't know what's in it. He will tell that's the interpretation. This is the two things which will do, it seems to be odd, because the Rasulullah was not ordered to break the cross. For those who are the people of the Dhimma, their crosses are safe. They should not be touched.
So there's a rumor in Muslims that when Rasulullah conquered after Fatah Makkah, there were a lot of statues, and there was a statue of Isa and
this narration is faulty. This is most likely fabricated by some converted Christian who could not overcome that in their hearts. And there are also some things about, it seems to be well established that there was a statue of Ibrahim and Ismail casting lots. Not casting lots is permissible, but asking the lots about the future, divination.
So they were broken as well.
I said, all broken, but he said, قاتلهم الله, may Allah declare them war. They never did this in their lifetime, with divination. Like, for example, you want to go a trip, and then you go to the idol, and then there are various, there's like tokens, one say go, one do, one don't do, one is neutral. So they cast it and said, if it comes to do, then you say, okay, or we insist to have 3 times do, etc. And if you don't do, then you don't go to the trip. Neutral, then you cast again. So that's the way they were trying to guess the future. This is all nonsense. You analyze your trip. Is it a good business? According to the business, tawakkal Allah and go to your trip. Don't cast lots. And then you have all kind of khurafat. If you go out of your house and you find the bird flying from the right to the left, this is a good omen. From the left to the right, bad omen back home. All these nonsense.
Sheikh, would you recommend Iman University in Yemen?
Any place to study formally, Yemen is not bad.
But it's not corrupted.
I was not there, so I cannot judge. And, the Yemenis are quite independent. The government is holding back, not interfering in people's affairs too much. Otherwise, they will rebel because the people are stronger and enforcing with that. They are armed. Some of them, even tribes, are armed with tanks and so on. So the government has to respect its limit. Madina University is just a spying center, unfortunately. It has degenerated considerably into a spying center. Then Imam Muhammad Saud Riyadh is much better. The Islamic study departments in King Saud University, it is always only one department, which gives us general Islamic studies, not divided in Sharia, Usul al-Din, Tafsir, and so on. Has produced some solid people, and they have some solid teacher there. Is more open-minded and more, but it's not very technical. I think also Mecca has some Sharia department. Be ready to have just one point of view. So after that, you have to get another point of view.
And Azhar is saying, would you class it as the same as Medina in terms of spying and things like that?
No, this because in Medina is the high domain of the Madkhali and so on, and they believe spying for the government is a virtue, bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That so far has been their brains. They demolished that they think spying is a virtue. That's the way.
So, where is it best studied? Do you think it would be best to study Islam in Europe, even?
Yeah, why not? But the problem is that you will not get it developed from the Muslim point of view first. It's good to get it first. For example, I would say if someone is aware about that, go to any Muslim country, look at a reputable university. Azhar is having a good reputation, so it's a good name, with a good certificate to hang on the wall. Sometimes. Yeah, because these certificates are decided to hang the walls. If someone opens a shut up, I have ijazah. Those who come with ijazah, it's good to have that on the wall. But then you have to build yourself further. I would, if someone, but this is the classical way, is not everyone's cup is maybe going to Mauritania and so on. Study at a classical mashayikh, but this is not structured and organized the way you may, but it will be more efficient.
Would be maybe best for someone to immerse themselves in the real classical Arabic, read as many books as you can.
Hamza Yusuf went to Mauritania, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he was Sufi before that.
Even if he was after that, this is not relevant. You have to make your choices. He has his own independent mind, because in Mauritania many jihadis have studied there with these mashayikh. And they have a very strong jihadi inclination. So Hamza Yusuf, being a Sufi, coming from American background, he doesn't feel that what he is lacking is spirituality and ritual of worship and so on. He's not lacking other things. He's coming from a society which is prosperous, a country which is dominating the seas and the air, so he doesn't feel this need for fight and so on. So sometimes your background dictates your inclination. His problem was that he has no connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whatsoever. And then he went in that direction. But we are not going to discuss Hamza Yusuf. But I would say, but you have to get Arabic first in a solid way. And for that, some of the universities like Medina, like Riyadh and so on, they have a full-time 1 or 2 years Arabic course, which after that you will be so solid that you can independent. So if you can gain that, plus some basic in any madhab, study anywhere in one university which gives you a certificate, that will be a good start. But don't think that's it. The deadly mistake will be to think that's it. I have got khalas. I have got the lion from its tail. No, you have got nothing yet. You just started the first step. That's the first step of becoming scholarly oriented, not even a scholar. And then build from there by self-reading, by following. And fortunately now we have the internet. We have so many books in PDF form, also programs which ease the search and so on. Plus maybe attending another university, a Western one, to see the critical. But you're aware that the Orientalists there, they have already set their mind in one way and try to prove by changing reality upside down. And this is not scholarly, but you can export that. For example, A'zami, who got the first King Faisal Prize for Islamic Studies for his PhD in Cambridge about
studies on early Hadith literature.
Yeah. He studied in Cambridge. Did not really. I don't know if he has come from a background, most like he studied already in India and so on. And I think he has no Saudi citizenship meanwhile, but at that time he came from the subcontinent. And he may have some scholarly background from there. I didn't ask him about that. Because I know him personally. We've got him like a fatherly figure. He's a man of great standing and great piety and great devotion to Islam at Ali. So with this in their homeland, he was able to undermine some of the work considerably. So it does not mean there's a danger, but you learn some kind of critical and you learn some of misconception. But you should be ready, your mind should be really like the following. It's very difficult to achieve this, but for example, when I went to Germany, I was very young at that time. Luckily, I studied some of Ibn Taymiyyah refutation of Christianity. I studied some issues of general philosophy before that, in Islamic context. And when I went to Germany, I was fearful. We are going to another country, another civilization, another culture, another world altogether. And they have interaction with some students in there. Some of them were Christian, practicing Christians, like newborn Christian. There's a small movement which started after the World War of like reviving Christianity. And some of them devoted Christians, and they had with them quite considerable arguments about the divinity of Christ and so on. And they noticed, I'm not at loss. I'm actually dominating them. I actually cornered them with the argument. You have good arguments. And then I recognize the rest of them, these were people who are deep. The rest of the people are just miserably shallow. They're just miserably shallow. I'm not recognizing that they're shallow, except few. There was a Hungarian professor. This is a fair-minded man. I think he's still alive. Maybe one day I visit Germany, catch him before he dies. He was my professor, my PhD father. One day we had this casual, and I said, I'll bring it in. When God will, I will be able to bring it back in time. Something that peaceful. I said, you are a modern man living in Germany now, and nowadays, nobody say, if God wills, you can sit and say, Herr Professor, you could phone me if you can't come. The phones could be down. There could be a flood. You have to control. Said, sorry, I withdraw my. He said, I made a mistake. He immediately recognized that he answered in a shallow way, like a common one in the West. What means if God will? I am going to deliver. You know that we have no control over the whole universe. That's the meaning of God wills. That's the meaning. It does not mean jabr. Does not mean compulsion or anything. That means you are considering the fact that you are not the Lord of the universe. There is another Lord. You are in the universe, subject to the Lord of the universe, and events, billions of small and big events which are not under your control. That's the meaning of it. Sorry, I'm not going to discuss any further. I know I made a mistake, forgive me, it was an intellectual blunder. It's the only one I met in the West who had the intellectual honesty immediately to recognize a mistake and withdraw. The others are just stubborn and stupid. Even professors of physics, as stupid and as narrow-minded as donkeys. Stuck with her point of view, and that's it. are not willing to see any alternative point of view. So don't think these people are deep. Scientifically escapable, because this can be done in the laboratory, can double check by experiment. That's everyone can do that. Them, and the Chinese, and so on. But in intellectual, real deep intellectual terms, they are majorly handicapped. Only the one with Christian devotion, they have something there, but that's all what they have. That's what they have on the table. They didn't have a very solid alternative, because they have been educated since childhood. Islam is the enemy. Islam is not worth even looking at, because it's terrible, it's miserable, it's self-contradicting, it's nothing. So they didn't bother looking. The moment they look, the ones who are objectively, they will be changed and impressed. And it happened to many people, as we know. So we should not be fearful, think, if I come to study in Oxford, then these people will undermine my faith. If you think this way, meaning your faith is flawed. There's a problem with your iman. The problem in the way you have built your iman. You have built it on taqleed, or following madkhali, instead of following the wahi, and the base of the wahi, and the companion of the wahi, and the result of the wahi is rationality. The moment that you see, for example, these madkhali and so on, the Salaf say, these rationalists, as if it's an insult. It should be a praise. If they are really rationalists, then you are donkeys. And if they are not really rational, then you are using the word wrongly. You have to correct your word. You should use the word irrationalist. But you find in books, al-rad al-aqlaniyin, respond to the rationalists.
It really is, because the source is Allah, and you can never go wrong with it.
Yeah, no, it's impossible.
It's just ridiculous.
Even they do not read Ibn Taymiyyah in this point. They read aql and naql. The book is, the full one is verified and corrected and very nice and print of 10 volumes. You find them everywhere in their shelves. It's just like a holy cow, just mashallah, how great they have. Ta'arul al-aql wal-naql. See, look, it has 10 volumes. That's it. But did anyone even bother? I remember one of them saying, I once opened these, did not understand it, and closed and left it on the shelf. At least this one admitted that he opened and returned the shelf. But others do not admit. They think they have read it or they understood it. They didn't. So this is a problem. But I think if anything, message from here to the Islamic movements who are qualified financially and organizationally is that you have to develop a parallel independent scholarship, meaning you have to have from your own body the qualified, the sharp ones. You have to motivate them. Even if they have studied, for example, physics, chemistry, biology, medicine, and so on, some of them can be forced, if necessary, go there and do. If you cannot do it full time, then do it by correspondence. At least you have the certificate and you study systematically. You know you have an exam. You don't have to sit for it. You have to do it more systematically. And this way, these movements will have their own scholarship, and that this old-fashioned or frozen in its frozen mentality scholarship, or even treacherous scholarship, will be exposed, will be finished, will be cornered. It won't work. Otherwise, you say, look at this, there's a couple of stupid guys, they have guns and shoot in the mountains and claim they are scholars. Well, who are they? Which credential they have? Other come say, yes, it's true. How can anyone sound in his mind compare an engineer who ran up in the mountains, God knows if he's a CIA agent or not, called Osama bin Laden, compare him to Tantawi? Tantawi is a scholar. The Sheikh Al-Azhar, Kabir. Many people will say that honestly, and many because it's convenient. Yes, true. Yeah. You have to have your alternative scholarship. Otherwise, it's not going for these movements.